Now it's Manchester United against Arsenal live on Sky Sports for this upcoming Super Sunday. And there's been plenty of fallout from United's FA Cup defeat to Fulham on Sunday. Yesterday on Sky Sports website, there was a poll around Ruben Amorim. Sam, just give us a summary of those results.
Yeah, so we decided to ask the question as to whether Manchester United fans are happy with Ruben Amorim, even in this short space of time. And actually, the results was quite resounding. 76% still support Ruben Amorim as Manchester United manager. Now, out of this 76%, it was split down the middle between whether they support Amorim and his style, and whether he have to continue this 3-4-2-1 formation, or whether changes need to be made at Manchester United. And of course, there are 24% of fans who don't support Ruben Amorim anymore. But I think it would be pretty harsh to sack Amorim, given the amount of turmoil on and off the pitch there has been at Manchester United. But it still seems that the Portuguese manager has the backing of the majority of the fan base. And yeah, feel free to go on the Sky Sports website and app to see not only the poll, but also the comments from certain Manchester United fans.
OK, let's look at some of the issues Amorim is facing then. What about Rasmus Højlund? His struggles in front of goal continue, really, don't they?
Yeah, that FA Cup defeat to Fulham means it's now 18 games without a goal for Rasmus Højlund. And actually, you know, he's only had 15 shots in that, and that's a pretty poor record as well. And actually, games without a shot, 8, which is pretty poor. He should have had a little bit more. He's missed 4 big chances, but again, only 6 shots on target from 18 games. It's not a good record. Now, the huge debate around Rasmus Højlund is it his fault or is it perhaps the service? And if we look at his rankings this season, it does tell us a story that maybe actually it's a little bit of both. So what we've done is we've compared Rasmus Højlund to the 81 Premier League strikers this season in terms of the numbers and the underlying metrics. And actually, he makes the second highest off-the-ball runs per 90. So he's looking for the ball more than most Premier League strikers. But only a quarter of them are in the box, and that's the 10th lowest out of all the Premier League forwards. Now, Manchester United players and his teammates still try to find him because he's in the top 10 for, runs that are targeted by a pass, but they don't necessarily find him. He's got the lowest out of all 81 Premier League strikers for touches in the opposition box this season. And then when he does get the ball, his dual success rate and his aerial success rate is among the bottom 2 or 3 strikers. So for Rasmus Højlund, I think it's very much the case of, yes, he does try, and no one can, go against his work ethic. And he is only 21, so he has got room to learn. But maybe there are some things that he could do better, and maybe those Manchester United teammates could find him in better positions. Interesting.
Right, given those numbers, some United fans may be hoping to see 17-year-old striker Chido Obi from the start Thursday night, but just explain why that won't be the case.
Yeah, so United play Real Sociedad in the Europa League last 16, and yeah, after the cameo performance against Fulham, a lot of people will be hoping that teenage striker Chido Obi Martin would be starting over Rasmus Højlund, but unfortunately he can't due to European registration rules. Now, how those rules work is that there is a List A and there is a List B. List A consists of the first team players that Manchester United have, and the deadline for that ended a couple of days after the January transfer window closed. Obi Martin has since come into the United first team since then, so he missed the deadline to be registered in that list. There is a List B, which is saved for academy players, but in order to qualify for that list, you have to be an academy player for a certain amount of time, around 3 seasons at that club. Chido Obi Martin joined from Arsenal in January, so unfortunately he didn't qualify for that list. So Obi Martin won't be able to play in Europe for Manchester United this season. Actually, looking at their season, who knows when he will be making his European debut for the club.
Unless they go and win the Europa League.
Unless they win the Europa League.
Yeah, OK. There's been plenty of talk around Bruno Fernandes following those comments from Roy Keane last week. Let's start with some positives in the attacking numbers.
Highly debated, Bruno Fernandes, isn't he? Is he good for Manchester United? Is he part of the problem? Well, let's look at the positives. Yes, he's in the top 10 for a lot of the chance creation metrics, and actually you do have to ask the question, where would United be without Bruno Fernandes? 8th for assists, in the top 5 Premier League players for chances created, big chances created, expected assists in the top 10, and he actually scores from outside the box, so he brings that unpredictability to Manchester United. And it's particularly impressive given Manchester United's seasons. Players are sitting around 14th, 15th in the Premier League table don't necessarily finish in the top 10 of these metrics. So it's still really impressive from Bruno Fernandes from an attacking point of view and with the ball.
Yeah, but I think what Roy Keane was getting at was the other side of the game, the defensive side. Where does he rank there?
Yeah, well, it was also Stephen Warnock on the show yesterday. We're saying on the ball he's really good, but off the ball he's not so good. And actually, you can see there's a bit of endeavour from Bruno Fernandes. He does press. He does like to press. He's in the top 5 players for going after the ball. He's in the top 20 for pressing in the final third. And actually, no player has more pressures in the middle of the pitch than Bruno Fernandes. So he does try to get the ball back and he does put in the distance. But out of those pressures, only 11% are successful. And that ranks 367th out of 480 Premier League players. So it's all well and good pressing and going after the ball, but is the press effective? And ultimately, we've seen a few instances this season when Bruno Fernandes has gone after the ball and then hasn't got it, put his arms up. I think there was the second goal for Everton a few weeks ago was an example where Everton got an attack from one of those failed Bruno Fernandes presses. So I can understand the arguments for and against. He is important with the ball, but actually, could Bruno Fernandes be better supported in midfield with the pressing and maybe have someone backing him up to press and having a better team press if United to be more successful?
Yeah, let's talk about Bruno Fernandes. There he is. Scored United's equaliser, send the game into extra time. Subject of a big debate last week with another former United captain, Roy Keane, suggesting talent isn't enough, was what he was saying when it comes to him. You say it's just not good enough to be the best player in your team to be captain. You've got to be a captain. You've got to be a leader. You've got to drag them with you.
Yeah.
Is that a fair comment? Do we have captains in the game like that anymore? Because during that debate, they went back to Tony Adams, people like that, Roy Keane, I guess. Yeah. Van Dijk at Liverpool you would look at as one of those type of leaders. Do we have them? How important are they?
I think that they are dying out the game now. I think what we're seeing now is teams are coached in a different way and they understand the tactics more so on the pitch. But my big thing with Bruno is I understand what Roy Keane is saying. I mean, all the games that he's played well in this season that I've watched is when they're down. Well, that's not brave. Bravery's doing it at 0-0 or when you're 1-0 up and going to get the ball and closing down and doing it when it's the hardest moment in the game where you do have to vacate a position and make a run or do something or go and close someone down. They're doing it at the moment, United, where they're doing it when they're a goal or 2 goals down and suddenly they come to life. Well, there's no pressure on when you're 2-0 down. That's not pressure. Pressure's 0-0. So I understand that side of it. Listen, there's no going away from his numbers. His numbers are incredible. On the ball, the guy's phenomenal. He sees things that other players don't see on a pitch, but he can also pick that pass. He can execute the pass. He's got that quality on the ball when you do need it. He can complete that pass under pressure. But go the other side of things. Would I like to play against him going the other way? Would he track you back? Would he be hard to play against? I don't think he do. I don't think he is hard to play against. I think he's easy to play against. I think the other side of it, I'd worry when he's on the ball. But off the ball, I'd be thinking, there'll be teams watching Manchester United now and over the course of the season saying, run off the back of Bruno. He won't track you. He will not track you. Look at Doucouré's goal last week against Everton. For Everton against them. Doesn't want to track. He's 30, 40 yards away from Doucouré. And then he turns round and has the cheek to throw his arms up and blame everyone else because he made one press and no one else followed him in. But Doucouré ran off him 40 yards the other way. So there's a side to Bruno which is great, which is on the ball, but off the ball, where United really, really struggle, he's part of the problem. So you've got such a fine line with such a talented player on the ball, but off the ball, he's nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, I just don't think you can question his ability because his ability we've seen where Manchester United needs somebody to step up and produce something amazing. He can do that. You know, we saw it against Everton where he said he wasn't at his best in the first half, came out second half, brilliant free kick. You know, again, we see it yesterday, fantastic finish. So he's got that ability, and you can see his stats throughout. You know, I think it was since 2020, that wasn't it? So in the Premier League, what he's been able to do for Manchester United is incredible. I think when you're talking about a leader and a captain, I think that's something different. We've always known that there's been different sorts of leaders, and there's ones that are your Van Dijks that you can very much see he is that sort of communicator and gets the best out of the players. But then you also get players that lead by example. And the thing that I don't like about Bruno is the throwing the arms in the air and things like that. I don't think that sort of works for anybody, but I just think you cannot question his talent and what he's done for Manchester United.
It begs the question, with Rasmus Højlund playing as he is, and he may well develop, do they have any chance of winning the league? 18 games without a goal now. When you watch him, what's going wrong for him? Does he look like a player that perhaps needs some time out the firing line, or some more intense? I don't know what it is, because he seems to appear in exactly the wrong place at the right time on occasions, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think we've said this on a number of occasions this season, that I feel sorry for him. I think you look at, he will work hard to get himself into the positions. He probably doesn't have that many chances that are created for him, but he just looks now like a player that's really lacking in confidence. You look, his first touch isn't quite there. He's not holding the ball up well enough. You know, even there were times yesterday where you thought he could go and press, and he's sort of a bit unsure whether to go or whether not to. So is that obviously the change in system? He's trying to get used to that system and working within that system. Is it getting players in and around him more? Yes, probably. So I think there's a combination of factors. But at the moment, he just looks like a player that's really lacking in confidence and probably knowing what to do. He's still a young man. He's still 22 years old. And I think when Obi came on, he probably did more in that small amount of time. And he's a young man, he's 17 years old, and he's come on and wanted to make an impact. And he showed that impact. He showed that sort of bravery of running in beyond. He was fighting for challenges. So you just wonder, is it an opportunity now for maybe to take Højlund out, just to take that pressure off him for a little bit, to come back in fresher, work with the coaching staff, and give Obi an opportunity? Yeah,
no shots in 16 games. Whoa, from a player who's nominally your centre forward. 17-year-old Chida Obi that you were referring to looked to have energy, to have no fear, to have the pace. Is Obi the one to fulfil that spot?
I knew there'd be one this morning,
I did.
Rob.
I was waiting for it.
The big thing is, for the difference between the two players is Obi's been chomping at the bit to get his opportunity. And when you get your opportunity, there's energy in your legs, there's enthusiasm, there's the ability to... Sometimes you make the wrong run and the ball comes to you.
Yeah.
It's strange the way that can happen at times. Højlund's heavy-legged. He's low in confidence because he's had a tough season. So it's completely different contrast between the two players. They cannot be judged in the same way because of the amount of games that they've played and the positions that they're in. When Højlund first came to the club, I thought, I don't mind him. I think he's got decent hold-up play. I mean, I remember the game away at the Emirates where he played against Arsenal, and he was battering Gabriel and Saliba about, and he looked physical in the way that he played. And I thought, they've got a decent player on the hands here. But when you actually look at his goal record at Atalanta, it's not brilliant. Wasn't great, wasn't really prolific. But I think they knew that when they bought him. I think they thought, he's a focal point, he's someone that can hold the ball up and he'll do a decent job. He's a player just sadly lacking in confidence, and they don't really have that option to really bring anyone else in that position. I mean, they've tried different players in that centre-forward position. They've obviously moved Rashford on. But Obi looks like he could be an option now to bring in. Will it last long term over a period of time? We just don't know. No.
Holders out. How disappointing is this latest setback for them and for Ruben Amorim here?
Yeah, it is, and it's not very nice to go out on penalties, and it was a game that I suppose could have gone either way. It was quite scrappy at times. You know, both teams sort of losing the ball at times. Manchester United looking disjointed in and out of possession, which is something that I think we've said for large parts of the season. When they go forward, it's that creativity, that scoring of the goals that certainly was lacking. And also conceding from set pieces, so you go, okay, you know, that sort of lack of concentration. They've conceded far too many goals from set pieces. Things I'm sure that Ruben Amorim is working on in training. But yeah, now you just look at Manchester United and go, well, the focus is obviously the Europa League now.
Yeah, okay. United's record goal scorer Wayne Rooney suggested it was naive for Amorim to say United wanted to win the Premier League title. This was Amorim's response.
That is the goal. Be naive is to think that we are going to do this season or are going to be the best contender for the next season. So I know that is in this moment everybody knows everything. So I know that, and it's really easy. I was a pundit when I finished my career, so I know it's really easy. Our goal is to win the Premier League. Maybe it's not with me, but our goal as a club, the board, is winning the Premier League like we did in the past with all the great glories and the legends of this club. And we want to do better, and we know that we are in the difficult moment, and I'm not naive. That's why I'm here coaching at 40 years old the Manchester United.
Okay, this is going to be fun because I can see both sides of this.
Yeah.
So whatever you say, I'll say the opposite.
Yeah.
Was it naive to say that?
You've got to set a standard within a football club, and United have been incredibly successful over the last 20 years or so, but not in recent years. So what he's basically saying is we want to get back to the top of our game. So there has to be an ambition to be at the top of the to be at the top of the table. There's a naivety to it to think that you can do it very quickly. But he hasn't really said that. He just said we want to win the Premier League. So I think it's worse if a manager comes in and says, we're going to survive. We're going to find a way to get to where we need to go. You've got to set a benchmark, and the benchmark's to win the Premier League. If there's no aspirations to do that as a football club, then it's very difficult. But I do get it from Wayne Rooney's point of view, is that the big thing is that there's no time frame on it, and that's the side of it where Amorim gets away with it, where he just says, well, I didn't say it was going to be this year or next year. It's that's the ambition to get us back to where we want to be as a football club. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
See, he's answered both sides there, so I can't have a...
Back, can you?
Oh, that was cleverly done, Stephen Warnock.
But it's true, it is, and that's the thing. I think if he'd have said a time frame, if he'd have said, look, we're looking to win the Premier League this season or the next season, but he was just saying that's where Manchester United inevitably want to be. They want to be winning titles again. So, yeah, I could understand, because you've got to have that goal, haven't you, as a football club, as Manchester United. That is their goal eventually, to do that. We don't know how long that's going to take to get there, but I think that was his comments. Yeah,
it's interesting when you think back to Jurgen Klopp's first press conference. He said, by the time my contract's up, I will have hoped to have won a Premier League title. Yeah. So he's given you a time frame there to say that's when he would expect to have won a title. So there would have been a lot of people talking in around his contract and saying, OK, you're coming up to this period where you said it. It's like Postecoglou this season. He's going to come under immense pressure because he said he always wins a trophy in his second season. So there's a time frame on it, whereas that's a little bit different. I don't mind. I quite like ambition.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be ambitious. I think there's got to be something that pushes the players to know what the expectations are at a football club. Now, whether it's working or whether it's not, that's not what's in the question here. The question is can I push these players to tell them that the ambition of myself or me as an individual, but also as a collective and as a club, is that we want to be competing for Premier League titles and we want to win one.
Yeah. And he actually said, didn't he, I might not be there, so it might not be under me, but that is where Manchester United are going to be at some point.
You can imagine the uproar if you said our ambition is to finish 17th. You can imagine it, can't you? You could have been, whoa.
Gary Lineker has suggested that some of Manchester United's problems can be dated back to Sir Alex Ferguson's legendary managerial spell at Old Trafford. Sir Alex Ferguson is regarded as one of the best managers of all time, and the 83-year-old Scotsman had a remarkable impact during his time at Manchester United. The legendary former United manager led the Red Devils to all 13 of their Premier League titles, 2 Champions League trophies, and a famous continental treble. Ferguson, who also had a sensational impact in Scotland with Aberdeen, ushered in a period of dominance in English football for the Red Devils when he was in charge. The United legend bowed out of Old Trafford at the end of the 2012-13 campaign after he led the Red Devils to their last Premier League title in 2013. Manchester United have failed to climb back to the top of English football since Sir Alex Ferguson called it time on his legendary managerial career. Ruben Amorim has become the 6th permanent United manager in the post-Ferguson era after his arrival from Sporting CP last November. The 40-year-old United manager succeeded Erik ten Hag in the Old Trafford dugout after his predecessor was sacked as Red Devils boss last October. Ruben Amorim faces a massive uphill task at the Red Devils in the 2024-25 campaign, with United languishing in 14th place in the Premier League table. The former Sporting CP boss suffered a major setback on Sunday evening after Fulham knocked United out of the FA Cup on penalties at Old Trafford. Speaking after Fulham's 5th-round FA Cup win, Gary Lineker highlighted that Liverpool set up onslaught for success after Jurgen Klopp's exit from Anfield. "If you look at Liverpool now, they've got a new manager in onslaught, and it's testament to how Jurgen Klopp left the club in a really good state," he said on BBC One, as per the Metro. "So, the structure is really good." Lineker then added that United's cracks started to emerge before Ferguson retired, with the Scotsman lifting the league title with a side that wasn't his best. The Match of the Day presenter claimed that former United manager Ferguson had players who were coming to the end of their careers in his final team. According to Lineker, even United's youth academy system wasn't delivering players for Ferguson on the same par as players from the likes of the class of '92. That probably wasn't the case at the end of Sir Alex Ferguson's time at Old Trafford, he continued. "I know they won the league that season, but it wasn't their best side, and a lot of their great players were coming to the end of their careers. I think from there they had problems. The academy wasn't delivering the players that they were before.